Welcome to Destination Linux episode 473, where digital freedom takes flight and the penguins don't just stand for privacy, they fight for it. I'm your host, Jill, swooping in like Supergirl with retro hardware, floppy disks, and a mission to protect the open source world from surveillance villains. Flying beside me today, Ryan, faster than a privacy breach takedown and always ready to heat vision through corporate data grabs. And
True.
of course, Zeb, dropping in with hot news, items straight from the Daily Planet front page. But today's episode is extra special. We're joined by Jason Kelley from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, one of the
Yes.
real-world heroes defending our rights, your privacy, and your digital autonomy. Woohoo!
It's very kind. It's great to be here.
Aw, it's so wonderful having you. This is like a dream
one of the
come
most
true.
exciting episodes. To me, it's historic because
Yeah.
EFF is so important. But we're going to get into I just can't. I'm so excited, Jill.
I know.
could burst.
That's okay.
Honestly,
Sorry,
could
I
burst.
cut off Jill's intro. I apologize, Jill. I know what you have to
No.
get through. You have a whole thing to do.
No, it's okay because seriously, Jason, me and Ryan were just talking earlier. When I started on Destination Linux, can you believe it, Ryan? It's almost been 6 years ago.
No, it seems like 2 years ago. Right? Time flies now that we're aging.
So me and Ryan were talking about a dream of ours is to have EFF on.
Yep.
Wow.
And here we
Well,
are.
I'm. You just wait until you get to know me a little better. I hope the dream comes
Aw.
true, but I'm not
They
sure.
say never
We'll
meet
see.
your
We'll see.
heroes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope we find out that that's not a true saying today, but you'll see.
We're gonna find
Thank you so
out.
much
We're
for
gonna
having me.
find out.
And we also have community feedback from our freedom fighting listeners, the latest Linux and privacy news if we can get to it. And did I mention, once again, EFF is on the show.
Yeah.
So tighten your cape and get ready to soar above the surveillance skyline. This is Destination Linux.
And before we get into the EFF interview, we have our community feedback this week, and it comes from Matthew, who says this. Hello, Destination Linux. I'm a blind teenager using Arch Linux. I love your shows, and I found you guys when searching for Linux podcasts. I feel that Linux accessibility is understated, and not many people know about its problems on various desktop environments, and especially Wayland. It would be cool if you guys would talk about that. I assume you don't know how much about it, but the power and customization of Linux has to be valued by all the communities using it. I figured out what Linux was a couple years ago, and I used to switch back and forth from Windows as my comfort zone and trying to stick with Linux. But now I've learned to just deal with the issues. I use the Mate desktop, which offers decent to good performance with the Orca screen reader. I've recently gotten interested in coding and programming. I'm starting with Python. I really enjoy your content. Well, Matthew, we love having you as a listener. Thank you for finding us. And we're glad you're part of the family and community in there. We actually have a lot of history on this topic. I think, Jill, it'd be safe to say we're one of the only Linux podcasts that have tackled this on quite a regular basis.
Yeah.
I actually we've talked about it in the past and had guests on to discuss accessibility. When we have developers on, it's one of the questions we ask each time for a developer for different distros is what accessibility options are they adding or looking into adding. So it is something that's really near and dear to our heart. And I'm going to let Jill explain why it's near and dear to her specifically. But I do want to also mention that Pop! OS's accessibility documentation was one of those things where we had a lot of listeners writing in about accessibility problems, and there was no documentation to tell them what tools to use. So I ended up writing Pop! OS's accessibility documentation, the first iteration. Today it's much better because somebody took it over and made it better. But that is some of the things that when you think about what you can do, I love that you're learning coding. Python's amazing. It's usable everywhere from data analytics to writing new software programs, just everything. You can do pretty much everything with Python. It's an amazing, flexible programming language. I think it's a brilliant one to start with for sure. But there are many things you can do. If you can't code, maybe you could write some accessibility documentation for the various distros out there. And even if you don't have issues yourself with accessibility problems, maybe you don't use screen readers and those things, that doesn't mean you can't work within the community to find out what tools and things are available and still write that documentation, because that was my case. And thankfully I had Jill, that I could work through and find out what tools she was using and stuff so that I could use that into the documentation. But Jill, this is much more up your alley than mine as far as, this has been a long-standing issue with Linux. And frankly,
Yeah.
let's just be honest, Linux is behind.
Yeah.
It's behind
Mhm.
here.
Yes, but improving every
Yes.
year. Within this last year, it's made massive strides. So, thank you so much, Matthew, for writing in, sharing your Linux journey with us and the challenges you have had with accessibility on Linux. I was actually born half blind and only see out of my right eye. I have good close-up vision, but no distance. So it's an issue with my optic nerves, and it's not something that can be fixed with glasses. My vision actually changes from day to day, and on days my close up vision is not good, I have to use a screen magnifier or screen reader. In fact, today is one of those days. I'm zoomed in a little bit today. And yes, there are definitely issues and bugs with accessibility on Linux, especially on Wayland, as you were saying. But I
Mhm.
found the Pop! OS Cosmic Desktop has the best Wayland support for accessibility and the best integration of any desktop. They did such a good job at making the tools so easy to use and well integrated. And when Cosmic came out, I helped Carl Reichel, founder and CEO of System 76, to improve the screen zoom on the Cosmic desktop at the Southern California Linux Expo. I had a wonderful chat with him about it and showed him some of the things I would like to improve that I think need to be improved, and he implemented them, and
Yeah.
that
You know
makes me
what's
proud.
interesting about that, Jill? Well, we're proud of you for also volunteering and helping them do that. But I think it's amazing that System 76 made that a priority.
Yes,
And I think,
absolutely.
there are so many distros. That's one of the confusing parts about new people coming into Linux. They're like, where do I start?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I would say would be a red line that I'll put on the ground is that if you want to create a new distro, great, go create one. But if you're not adding accessibility, you're not a real distro. That's
Yeah.
honestly how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
True.
Like, you're not a real
Yep.
distro, you're never gonna go commercial, you're not the real deal, and you probably shouldn't publish it outside of giving it to your friends. Because you're leaving a lot of people who may be the first one they come across, and you're just leaving a whole community of people behind by not implementing that. So if you're gonna take
Mhm.
on the awesome work of creating a distro, then accessibility has to be part of that plan, in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And Pop! OS has just made so many huge strides, again, like Ryan was saying, because they have made it a priority.
Yep.
And, thank you, Ryan, for your work helping with, Pop! OS in those early years with
It was so much
accessibility
fun.
and
Yeah.
documentation. That was just wonderful. And in fact, actually right now, I am on, Pop! OS Cosmic. I booted into Pop! OS. I have, like, 10 distros on my podcasting
Shocking, Jill.
rig.
I would never
Yeah.
guess.
So, I booted into Cosmic today so I could use the magnifier while I'm recording the show, and, so I'm practicing what I'm preaching, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's working beautifully, and, yeah, so that is there are some distros that have really tried to up their game with accessibility, and,
Mm,
Ubuntu Mate actually was one of them, and I think it will be in the future, but they still have to get, uh, people to help out with that distro to continue it, unfortunately,
so
'cause
what
it's
you're saying there, Jill, because I think that's important to cover, is Ubuntu Mate, if I'm not mistaken, had some of the most advanced tools for
Exactly.
accessibility out there that Martin Wimpress, who's a freaking genius,
Yeah.
don't tell him I said that, by the way,
Yes.
went and created and added some of those tools in there.
Yeah.
And now, though, Martin has stepped away from the project, and so it's up to the next generation of folks taking over Mate, which is a beautiful distribution, to kind of make sure that continues because he made the screen magnifier.
Yeah,
Um,
Magnus,
yeah.
which I use regularly, a lot, and it's been improving. The speed of it has improved a lot, and, it it when Wimpy put that out, I was actually able to use it to play games zoomed in on Linux,
Oh,
where
cool.
some of the other magnifiers weren't as good with it. They are now, that ever since, the one good thing about Wayland is if you wanna zoom in on games to watch them, to be able to see them and play them, Wayland is great for that.
Yeah.
Particularly, if you're partially sighted or half blind like myself. So, but Magnus is really the screen magnifier. I think was the best out there at doing that. And Wimpy is a good friend of ours, and him and his team did an amazing job with it. And
He
he
is a
just
good friend, Jill, but he did make fun of me in release notes. So,
okay.
I mean, we have to
And
put a
rightly
little
so.
yeah, we have to put a little stipulation there, a little asterisk to say, "Great friend, better troll, better
Yeah.
troll." Yes.
Aw. So, Matthew, I actually often use eSpeak or Festival on the terminal to read web pages and documents. Also, I found SpeechNote and Piper that use natural sounding AI speech engines integrate nicely in the desktop and applications. So there are some other alternatives to Orca, but Orca is just a great suite full of all the accessibility tools that, people need.
Yeah,
It's
and it's important that the
yeah.
accessibility tools are accessible upon
Yeah,
booting. So
exactly.
that's the thing too that like because a lot of people are like, "Oh, we have accessibility in our documentation," and you read it, and it starts with like a distro installed. Well, go install Orca and go install. Well,
Yeah.
how they get the thing installed?
Exactly.
That's the question, right? You have to start from the very beginning of the process. This is something where I feel like, AI does so much.
It's improving it,
I feel
yeah.
like I was gonna say AI does so much bad things, but that's not really true. I feel like AI gets a bad rap for a lot of good
Mhm.
reasons. But this is
Mhm.
where I feel like AI could really come in and be very useful tool for the general good of
Yeah,
open source as well, is by leveraging AI to help write these tools and help improve these tools at a faster pace. To me, seems like a perfect application of AI in my mind, anyways.
yeah, absolutely, Ryan, and like I said, the AI speech engines are so much better sounding.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great point. Yeah, it
So,
makes a big difference.
that really has elevated all the different, um, text to speech and speech to text, applications a lot.
Can I just say, I'm so glad that this was your comment or your sort of feedback today because this is we've talked quite a bit about accessibility, repairability, things like that at EFF. We've done some work on that with the DMCA and right to repair and things like that.
Yes.
But coming to a podcast where people are thinking about it on open source, on Linux, and thinking about how it works is just refreshing, frankly, because it doesn't come up that often when sort of like people are thinking about the work that EFF does. And it's one of the original reasons people had to hack things, right? To get
Mm,
things to work for them accessibly. There's sort of
good point.
we have a podcast at EFF that we did for a while, and one of the guests said that disability rights advocates are like the original hackers, and it's just
Wow. I
Yeah.
it's
like
so
that.
cool to. It's just great to hear you all talk about this specific issue because it doesn't get enough play whether you're talking about open source or
Anywhere
Mac or
else.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Awesome.
think that I appreciate that very much, and we appreciate all the work that EFF has done with that as well. Especially, I think about the original hackers. You know, I think of Bo Weaver, Jill, when we had him on the show, and he said everybody has been a hacker at some point. Now Bo Weaver is a real genuine pen testing, break into buildings, wrote books on the subject, amazing hacker. Yeah, hacker. Now, but he was saying everyone who uses Linux is a hacker because you've had to do something to make something work where it wasn't supposed to. The greatness about Linux is we have the power to be able to do that without having to do too much under the engine work, whereas it's a little more difficult in some of the more closed source stuff. But it's a very good lesson, I think, for all of us to remember and keep in mind, and also a great way for people who are new in the community. You're like, I don't code, I don't know what to do, but I want to get involved. This is such a great place to start. And you're going to make a huge impact on a lot of people's lives. So I think it would be absolutely fantastic. All right. So, as Linux users, we all know that we've been in the security paradox. You need deep EDR, endpoint detection and response visibility, but traditional agents are often a hassle. They cause kernel panics, conflict with critical updates, and eat up precious CPU cycles, all on your production nodes, essentially creating the very downtime they're supposed to prevent. Kind of speaking of security too, another great thing you can do with Sandfly is you want to be read up on all the latest security news. You want to be read up on all of the different threats out there. And Sandfly has an incredible blog out there. It's also a fantastic tool to use in your home lab, which we're going to talk about how you can get 50% off if you're interested in cybersecurity, so that you can start figuring out how these tools work and what makes them so successful at what they do. And moving on, this is exactly why global leaders are moving to things like Sandfly. So the agentless Linux security platform. In fact, Ericsson just partnered with Sandfly to provide agentless EDR for their wireless and mission-critical telecom networks worldwide. Think about level of scale and rigorous auditing required for that kind of partnership. So there's another hint. If you want to get with a big company, Ericsson is massive and huge. They're using Sandfly now. So if that is a potential way, if you're seeing job openings and things out there, utilize Sandfly out there, get used to it. They're using it, and you might be able to walk in on a position because of your experience with it. So that's why Destination Linux is proud to be sponsored by the incredible team at Sandfly Security. As Sandfly is trusted to secure mobile infrastructure where downtime is measured in millions of dollars. Imagine the stability and reduced technical debt it brings to your enterprise fleet. You get deep forensic visibility, SSH key auditing, drift detection, and you don't have to install a single piece of software on your production endpoints. It's security that respects your uptime and simplifies your compliance audits. And for the home lab enthusiasts, Sandfly still offers the home edition. You get 50% off right now using the code DESTINATION50. Join the shift to agentless by going to deviantairwaves.com/Sandfly. That's deviantairwaves.com/Sandfly. Make sure you use that link because that lets them know we sent you there. And you'll figure out why the world's most critical infrastructure runs on Sandfly when you visit that site. Jill, speaking of fantastic people, I think we have a new patron that joined this week. Is that true?
We sure do.
All right.
Advait. I love
Awesome.
the name. It's ADVAIT.
Well, Advait, thank you so much
you
for
so
becoming a
much.
patron on the show. And by the way, you guys know how important EFF has been to us. And we announced this shirt, which I finally got mine in the mail. The Resist shirt, Resist ID verification, censorship,
Looking good.
lack of ownership,
Aw.
and it comes with all the details. So the great thing about this shirt is somehow I designed it and it turned out well, because you guys know I'm not a good designer, but I created this in GIMP, completely open source tool. It comes on an Under Armour shirt, by the way, so very high quality, and every single penny of this shirt, the profit that we get from this is going straight to EFF. So it's going to an amazing cause. Go pick up your shirt. And we are going to make a nice donation to EFF with that. And it's really cool. Even the fist of resistance has all the digital circuitry and things reflecting inside of it. It's just very, very cool shirt. So we hope you will pick it up and enjoy that. So that's another way you can support the show. And of course, one-time donations as well. But now is the real time for us to do what we're all here for, and that's to hear from Jason and the EFF.
Dun, da, da, da.
So it's your turn.
Sorry.
That's awesome.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, if people aren't watching this and they can't see the shirt, it is very cool. I was impressed, even if you're not a designer. We have designers at EFF who do magic that I certainly cannot do, and I'll just say that you've done some good work there, and I've seen some of the best. So nice
I
job.
appreciate that. And EFF
Um,
does do some of the best because I
Yeah,
wear a
you
lot of
guys.
y'all's stuff.
Oh, I've got a
We're
vintage
lucky.
EFF shirt on. It doesn't even.
Yes,
This is
you
a
do.
logo they're not even using anymore from like 2000.
Yeah, the original EFF logo. So people who, know EFF and have known EFF for a while probably know the black E with the sort of red FF circle. And
Mhm.
that's supposed to look like a socket, like an
power
outlet
plug.
with a
Oh,
plug going
yeah.
into it. Yeah. Whether it
Makes
does or not
sense.
is, up to the perceiver.
Now that's all I'll
but
see, though. I love it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's so funny. It's so funny because I hadn't thought about it in a while, and I remember I knew that at some point. So,
Yeah. Sure.
It's
Yeah. We all remember. Yeah, I learned that, and it's only the fact that I work at EFF that I would keep remembering, because
yeah.
you're not going to see it unless, I mean, maybe Ryan, maybe you'll remember, but most people I think are just it's pretty subtle. Let's say.
Yeah.
Nice
it
and
is.
subtle, but beautiful nonetheless. I actually miss that logo. I actually love
Yeah.
that logo. I have several of your stickers with that logo and
Yeah.
things over the years. Yep, and Jill, of course, you have a whole wall of stickers. I don't
Yeah.
even know how you would find it, Jill. It'd be like find Waldo on that wall of stickers.
One over there.
There's a
one
lot
over there.
there.
There's a couple of them now.
Yeah, we joke that EFF is like a t-shirt factory with a law firm attached, because of how much we do the merch, but we do the stickers, we do all the stuff. So yeah, it's most people probably know us from our merch. Honestly,
sometimes I feel bad because it's like you can donate without getting something, which means the money goes straight to the cause.
Yeah.
But I love y'all stuff
But
so
you
much.
never
I'm
do.
like,
Yeah,
I got to get the shirt. I got to, or I got to get the hat, or at least stickers.
Don't feel bad.
I at least got to get stickers. So
Yeah.
you guys are your own worst enemy because you make too good of cool stuff.
We understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we one of the things that really surprised me is how often we refresh all that stuff. I mean, again, we have designers on staff, and every year there's a couple new designs of all kinds of stuff, whether it's stickers. Oh, actually, speaking of accessibility, we have a very cool Lady Justice Braille sticker that came out maybe late last year. That's like got a Braille message on it. I would tell you what it says, but I can't remember. And we actually just put out what this is not necessarily the same, but a stem sticker that's got sort of a raised design that you could put on anything flat, and it's just something to futz with when you feel like it. Yeah, we're always not me. The people at EFF that aren't me that work on the merch stuff are always thinking ahead.
I love it.
They're
I love
great.
it. Keep it fresh. All right, so let's give Jason a proper introduction,
Yes.
Jill, and let's get into this interview.
Okay, so for years, the Linux and open source community has defended freedom in software. Today, we put that fight at the center of the conversation. Our guest is the wonderful Jason Kelley, Director of Development Strategy at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Jason, welcome to the show.
Officially welcome to the show.
Jason was so awesome to come on as a full guest host for the whole show.
Yeah, for the whole show. And listen, this couldn't have come at a more critical time too, and we're going to get into that as we get through here. But this week has been quite monumental. So it's great time to join us, Jason.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on, and I'll be happy to tell you about it.
Yeah. And again, we're so happy to have you here today. Yes, it is a dream of me and Ryan to have you here today.
I have to be honest, it's a dream that I can come on and represent EFF. I was a big EFF fan for a long time. So before I started, big fan. Shocked that I'm here, to be honest, and so really appreciate the warm welcome. And I just want to hitting my mic. I just want to clarify something, because I was confused about this when I started at EFF. Development at EFF does not mean engineering. When you're in a nonprofit, development is fundraising. I am not a coder in any real sense of the word, so I'm actually
that takes out half our questions. We were going to have you code live and write a software
We're going to do
package.
just a live coding session.
Hackathon,
Yeah. No, I did work on the activism team for the last 8 years, and was the activism director for a few. So I've done a couple of different things, but I just want to be clear that development in the nonprofit world does not mean coding. So if you have questions about your distributions and why they're failing, I'm not the one to ask.
No, go to Jason for those. Or do,
Aw.
because the answers may be hilarious.
Yeah.
Have you tried rebooting?
I can, I can tell you what they've told me when I've had the problems.
There you go.
You're probably not connected to the internet, is my guess.
That's the go-to right there. Plug it in, it in again.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, Jason, you're not alone, because I'm the non-technical geek of the party, so to speak.
Goodness.
So when you talked about development strategy, to me, it meant exactly that. How are we going to move forward? What are we going to do? Nothing to do with Linux development. So yeah, I didn't think that for 1 minute.
Rob
It would have
gets
been
it.
cool if you could do, but yeah, no, I'm the average Joe who tries to bring these two under control when they get too
Yes.
technical for people.
We need Zeb to keep us focused.
That's right. Keep us on task.
Yeah. So, Jason, I know many of our listeners know and love EFF, but we have a lot of new listeners and want to start with the origin story. So, who is the EFF and what do they fight for?
Okay, this is a hard question to answer because it can be so big. The
Nice.
EFF is about, first of all, I want to say that the EFF is the Electronic Frontier Foundation, often misquoted or misattributed as the Electronic Freedom Foundation or something like that. And look, we'll take it. If you want to reference us, that's fine. However you want to do it. But it's a little bit of a throwback name, Electronic Frontier Foundation. We're actually none of those things, really. We're a digital age organization that is not a foundation. We don't give money out particularly in that way that foundations do. And to say that we're on the frontier is that was language we used to use a long time ago and don't use as often now. But it's too late, so we just say EFF a lot. I think most people who come to EFF do because of a specific issue that's sort of troubling them. And so those issues in broad scope are usually about privacy, free speech, security, creativity, fair use, open source, sort of broad categories. But most people think of EFF from a specific fight. They think of EFF from Edward Snowden having an EFF sticker on his laptop and an EFF hoodie because the EFF was in a lawsuit against the federal government for mass surveillance. Or they think of EFF from Code is Speech, the sort of first big Supreme Court case that we won in the 90s. But EFF started because of a visit from the FBI to a couple people, John Perry Barlow, who was a lyricist for the Grateful Dead and a rancher in Wyoming, and Mitch Kapoor, who created the Lotus 123 sort of Lotus suite.
Yeah.
So go back in your head to 1990. EFF started in July of 1990 because these folks, along with many others, were on the Whole Earth Electronic Link, the WELL, which was a BBS that you dialed into like a chat room. If folks don't know, back in the day, you just called them up directly like a 1-800 number, except you probably weren't. It wasn't a 1-800 number. It was a local number or a long distance number. But you called because the people that were on that BBS did interesting things that you cared about. And this was one that had some folks on it that were also sort of like the person you mentioned earlier, Ryan, sort of real hackers, if you will. A lot of teenagers, a lot of kids who were learning sort of about the way that the internet worked, the way that the telephone system worked. And apparently, the FBI visited JPB, John Perry Barlow, and Mitch Kapoor because two things were sort of happening at once. On the one hand, someone had copied a distribution of the Macintosh source code, and the FBI was sort of investigating this. And then secondly, the Secret Service was running an operation called Operation Sun Devil, where they were investigating the distribution of sort of a copied document about how the emergency 911 system worked. They were concerned that someone would be able to like take it over or use it nefariously or something. And basically what we're talking about is just the distribution of code, right? These weren't people necessarily who were trying to do any damage. Were people who were interested in learning more about it. But when they visited both Barlow and Kapoor, it was because they were on the well, basically, and the well was sort of a hangout for people who were involved in this sort of discussion of hacking and things like that. And John Perry Barlow became instantly aware from the FBI visit that the government had no idea how the internet worked, how technology worked. Not that it was, I'm not saying it was easy to understand, but if you think about what the FBI or the Secret Service might have been doing in 1985 to try to track, I don't know, let's say drug dealers or
any nefarious group.
Any nefarious group, yeah. Switch that to the people, dialing up BBSs, the people distributing code, the people thinking about how these architectures worked. And the FBI and the Secret Service just didn't really know what they were doing. And so Barlow and Kapoor talked, and they sort of realized they had both gotten this visit about this Macintosh source code. And then they also saw from the well that the Secret Service was raiding teenagers' homes and taking their computers. And that was sort of, they sort of became aware that the government just didn't understand these things, and that depending on how it sort of progressed into the future, it might really trample on people's civil liberties, right? And they were right, of course. The first case that EFF took was because an Operation Sun Devil raid hit a games book publisher, so your standard sort of D&D book publishing kind of company called Steve Jackson Games. They took all their equipment. They were about to publish a new book called I'm going to get this name. It's called like GLURPS Cyberpunk or something like that.
Oh,
GLURPS,
yeah.
Your listeners probably know what this is.
Yes.
And so they took all their equipment, and they were sort of alleging that two things, that they had this 911 documentation, which was not true, and that their cyberpunk game manual was a hacker instruction manual. It was not. They just could not read it and understand it, right? So they started EFF, and first case was that Steve Jackson Games case, where a court held that electronic email deserves at least as much protection as sort of telephone calls when it comes to the way warrants and law enforcement work. So that's where they started back in 1990. It was sort of a law firm, expanded over time. The mission obviously has grown to encompass things like patents and trademarks and all kinds of other stuff. There's an activism team. There's a group of technologists, the public interest technology team. So there's just a wide array of stuff that these 100 or so people do, not to mention the folks working at the fundraising end like myself. And they're just throwing everything at the wall to protect your rights online, and have been for 36 years this month.
Wow. It's interesting you talk about the origin story, and I think about the first time that I found out about EFF, and it was during the time where Napster and everything was super popular. Everyone was downloading music, right or wrong. It just was there all of a sudden, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you can get all this music online for free. And what happened is, instead of the music industry losing lots of money, naturally wanted to try to fix that. So they started this group called the RIAA. And as I recall, and this group basically, instead of going after Napster or the people who were providing, they decided we're going to make a statement by suing the college students. So they started sending college students these insane, and I mean insane, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more fines, basically subpoenas to go in court. And of course, these are college kids who have no money.
Yeah.
are a lot of them are working part-time jobs just to be able to try to pay for their college to keep going, and all of a sudden they're hit with, six-figure lawsuits and things like that, and it just became this fight where it was just so unfair. And then this company came in and they were called the EFF. And they said, well, we're going to start helping these college kids out, and started providing representation and helping these kids get through this, and kind of got the RIAA to switch directions entirely off of it, because it no longer was a fair fight, because EFF had lawyers and they could help protect these kids from this stuff. And I was like, whoever this organization is, I love and I want to support them. And ever since then, that's been my feeling towards EFF. So when you said, like, generally people find EFF for a specific reason, 100% agree. I stayed even after that reason, because I thought, my gosh, we finally have, somebody who can stick up for the small guy, because who can compete against 16 record labels as a college student?
Yeah.
Like, you just don't have the resources to do so. And so there was a hero out there, and I wanted to support him. That's how I felt about it. It was very important work.
Oh, and for me, it was actually previous to the Southern California Linux Expo with my group, the Linux Chicks of Los Angeles. And we had several people from EFF come to one of our meetings. In fact, I was just talking about this with one of my co-coordinators, and she's like, Jill, that's how I found about EFF too, is when they came came to our meetup we had. And and since then, we've had the Southern California Linux Expo, and EFF has been there almost every year.
Yeah.
And
Which is nice, because you can get the merchandise right there. I don't have to wait for it to ship. That makes me super happy.
This is so
It's
true.
nice for us too, because we get to see you,
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're glad
exactly.
to be there.
And me and my co-organizers, we have been members of EFF for years. So every year we redonate to the EFF and get shirts. Like, I got this one years ago.
Yep. That's a big part of it. You got to
I
get
can't
the
believe
good
it's
merch.
so bright.
Yeah.
White is not a color that lasts a long time, but you have taken good care of it. Do you remember, Jill, what was sort of the interest you had when EFF visited, or was it sort of just because of your open source
Yeah.
Linux focus?
It was that and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
Of course.
That was a big
makes
thing.
a lot of sense.
And then I was remembering also, it's the First Amendment protections of software code, like in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Because
the Bernstein case.
The Bernstein case.
That was a big deal. The Bernstein case was a Supreme Court case that ruled basically where the Supreme Court ruled that code is speech, which has been like a cornerstone of protecting all sorts of things online and off since then. So that's great. Thank you so much for being a supporter. And now I'm just waiting for Zeb to jump in and say how much he loves us and why.
Well, the problem you'll have with me, Jason, is I'm not a very deep thinker like that. I'm just happy to be able to use the internet the way I want it. And I'm unfortunately one of those people who just take it for granted, knowing that someone out there is fighting for us. But it's since being back with Jill and Ryan on Destination Linux that sort of stance no longer carries any weight. You can't, in today's society, just sit there and not do anything, because it's
a lot harder.
Too many people like me who sat there and didn't do anything, that allowed these governments to take a foothold. So now I will be joining the EFF and helping Ryan and Jill fight in any way we can to keep our liberties, because it's just, you can't sit back and do nothing, because it's when you have that type of apathy that things go downhill. So
frankly, Zeb, I think that might be the most important thing said on this show, because I think so many people fall into that category. Number one, people are busy. They're busy, and the government knows it, and these organizations that write these bills know it. They know you're busy. They know you got 1,000 other things to think about. You're trying to figure out how to put food on the table, pay bills, and then they're slipping these little acts in and little bills in, and they're naming them these friendly things, and everybody goes, well, who doesn't want to help kids or, stop terrorism or whatever they name it to make it look like it's just the most friendly, positive thing on earth. And but you're right. Like, we've gotten to the point where, and I think the message most important to get out to the audience is you can't do that anymore. You can't just sit by and expect that things are going to work the way they used to, because they are very aggressively, actively trying to take that away from people, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're sort of always teetering on an edge, but the edge is getting sharper and sharper. And yeah, it's true. I do want to say I'm so lucky to work for EFF because, as an activist for 8 years on the team, I got to do the thing that helped move the needle in the right direction as a job, which is just an absolutely incredible thing. And anyone who volunteers, who donates, who, calls their senator or their, lawmaker in some capacity, anyone who just, writes open source code is a contributor to something that is really important. And it's true that people are busy, and I've been one of those people before. I still am, but I'm just busy doing the thing for EFF now. But it's true that there's a lot of apathy, but there's also not as much awareness of what needs done, of how to make a difference. Sometimes it feels like things are going off the cliff no matter what you do, and you're not really sure where to get involved. And that is one of the reasons I wanted to join you all today, to talk a little bit about some of the different things that people can do. And maybe in the future we'll have even more. We're still, we're constantly thinking about ways to have volunteers help out, and just have different people with different skills, push the fight forward. And
I mean, that's open source,
doesn't have to just
right?
be. Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't have to just be donations,
and helping out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the community is great. It does a ton of stuff. So, so that being said, yes, you can't sit on your laurels. You have to help more.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into some of those issues, there's one more thing that I think it's really important. Like any good comic book story, we need your origin story too. So tell us about how you found EFF and what the type of issues that you've been able to work on since working there.
I am so happy to be able to talk about myself for a little bit. So give me just a minute to stretch out. I was, let's see. In the dawn of time, no, I don't need to go back that far. In the 90s, I got on internet relay chat. I was one of those kids that found myself online more than offline. And I was doing the things that I was a script kiddie, if that means anything to folks. I wasn't learning how to code so much as I know the terms. I wouldn't say I can code, although AI is making some changes in how that works. So, but I was the moderator of an internet relay chat channel with some people I knew in real life, some people I knew from the internet. Also, my girlfriend that I met, my first girlfriend I met on IRC, and and then I met her in real life, and then she moved to the town I lived in. That's a weird story, right? But if you think about it, there was a time in the early 90s where her mom introduced me to her on IRC. I was talking to her mom. I was, 14 or something. And her mom was like, "Oh, my daughter's closer to your age than I am." It was a weird time, but people were sort of open. They were friendly. They didn't have as much concern about the things that we have had concerns about since then. And also, I'm not saying it was a perfect time. It's just that, this was a bizarre situation.
It out together. Yeah.
We were all figuring it out. Exactly. And so I was just very online at that time. I ended up getting my first job working for the network administrator of my school district in high school. And I didn't know anything. I mean, I was just one of the 4 kids in the computer club, and I was trying to get, learn more. And for a summer, he picked me up, and I basically just took apart computers. And installed software manually across multiple computers that the district had, like one computer at a time.
Right.
So I learned a lot, but I was a politically active kid, and in addition to being a bit of a bad, not very good, meaning not very good script kiddie. So the two things I sort of got in trouble for, caused trouble at school, were telnetting into the email server when I was before I got into high school. And I didn't really know what I was doing. And also they spelled my name wrong. And it's Kelley. It's the last name, Kelley, with 2 E's. So I was trying to send myself an email, and I ended up sending it it bounced, and it ended up at the principal, and the principal emailed me. It was a whole thing. Anyway, he basically said I'd broken the law. And I was like, I don't think that's true. That can't be right. I was so scared. And I think I found an EFF website when I was trying to figure out, like, am I going to jail, at 14?
Wow.
And
interesting.
then,
for the great hack. The
right?
great
Yeah.
hack.
Yeah. I mean, I literally just knew what the server, like, I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't hack it. I just tried to send an email from my own account. So then I also was one of those people who really didn't like the way the school was, let's say, blending church and state, despite being a public school in rural Ohio. And I called the ACLU when I was 16 or 17, and they said that I had a case because of what the school was doing, which involved like handing out Bibles and putting up posters about Jesus. And nothing wrong with that if you want to do that at your private school, but that's not legal in a public school setting. And I was like, wow, I kind of get how the law works now. Like, I didn't go to jail. I'm correct about the separation of church and state. I didn't actually do anything with the ACLU's information. They wanted to talk more, and I got to apply for college, guys. But this sort of set me on a path, right? And long story short, I ended up in San Francisco doing marketing after many years of college, grad school, and met someone who worked at EFF and had been following EFF. In grad school, I was following EFF because I was writing sort of nonfiction, let's say second-rate creative nonfiction essays about digital things, my life online, what you do when you try to get a master's. But I learned a lot about, just all the different ways the EFF sort of protected different parts of the internet. Like, they kept coming up, right? It was like, as I'm writing this thing, I'm learning more about the different things that they've worked on. And then I also was like, weren't they the ones that were sort of like, that had that website when I was a kid about like whether or not I broke the law by sending an email? And then there was the patent case where they were sort of protecting the basically podcasts from a patent troll. And I listened to, at the time, the WTF with Mark Maron podcast quite a bit. I was working from home as a person doing marketing, and I just listened to podcasts all the time. So he had Daniel Nazer on, who was a lawyer at EFF, who was sort of the lead lawyer on the patent troll case. And I remember just being like, I love this guy. This guy's funny. He's Australian and he's funny. I ended up in San Francisco meeting someone eventually who worked at EFF, ended up applying for the social media coordinator position. So I started as EFF's first social media person. Awesome. And have been there ever since. And, the part of the reason I'm excited to talk to you all about what's going on right now is that I sort of ended up working a lot on student privacy, which turned into just privacy for young people generally. And then that blew up as it was sort of something I was looking into already for EFF and working on as an activist. And then age verification became this enormous issue while I was sort of in that niche, and still is a problem, obviously, still something we're working on. But that's the most of my activism, my writing, my campaigns. I mean, they run the gamut. We all sort of jump in when we need help there at EFF, but mostly free speech and privacy issues, and a lot of it focused on protecting the rights of young people to be able to do things like, use websites, go online, make community, find people, learn things, whether they're at school or at home or wherever, without huge amounts of interference from the government and from the powers that be, depending
just
on what they are.
being able to use stuff without interference. It's interesting because I always use this parallel with people of they individuals will say, like, why don't kids spend more time outside? Why aren't they going outside more? All of this stuff. And the thing I tell them is, like, if you go on YouTube and watch these teenager journeys, they get harassed so much when they go outside. If it's not a neighbor who's calling the police on them because they're riding their skateboard or their e-bike where they don't want them, it's some cop that's just, trying to nosily find out why they're fishing in this pond, or they don't have a special license to fish here, or they don't have a special license for their e-bike, or they don't have a special license for their skateboard, or everything is so regulated. We've put so many laws that the only place they can actually be free is online. And now we're like, well, let's take that away too. Let's see if we can mess that up for them so that that's a miserable place as being outside is. Like, we don't make outside fun anymore. And
that's such a good
I blame
point.
the adults for that, us adults for that mostly. We're trying to make the internet not fun anymore too. So that's kind of, I think it's really important that we, continue those fights for privacy and let these kids understand why privacy is so important to them. Because I think with social media and everything else, it's very easy just to say, well, they've got everything on me anyways. Why do I need to hide it? And so that's a big one out there that we come across quite a bit that, is harder and harder to fight because kids have signed up for so much by the time they're 16 now that they just feel like, well, there's no reason to try to have privacy anymore. Of course, we know that's not true, but that's just the thing that we're always trying to fight on the show from a privacy standpoint too.
And if I may, that takes us nicely on to the next question, Jeff. With so many different types of issues out there, how is the EFF organized, and how do the pieces fit together on what issues to tackle first, in what order, and how do you go about tackling them?
Well, it's a struggle. There's a lot to do, but the unique sort of build of EFF, let's say, is that there is a legal team, an activism team, and a technologist team. And those three things work together really well to tackle most problems, right? And I'll kind of give you a sense of, let's say, you've got a politician pushing some ridiculous law with a great name, but it would be terrible. You've got lawyers who can help analyze the law. You've got activists who can rally people, organizations, sometimes companies to push back, sometimes to push for the laws. They're not all bad. So you've got a sort of first line of defense with some advocacy folks. Then you've got, okay, well, the bill passes. Now you've got a lawyer who can, work on pushing the bill, either overturning it or maybe shrinking it or expanding it if it's a good rule, which sometimes I know it's shocking, but sometimes if you work hard, you can get good laws. And then when none of that works, sometimes you need technologists to just build a thing that either fixes the problem or demonstrates why it's a problem to people who wouldn't understand otherwise, or at least can analyze it. So in terms of how we decide what to do, that's a great question that I'm still figuring out. I think stuff rises to the top, and oftentimes it's community led. I mean, we get a bunch of emails about something, sometimes from people who've supported EFF for a long time, people ask, what are you doing about this? And usually most of the time we are, but sometimes there's actually it's helpful to hear 5 people say that they're worried about something. But most of the time, frankly, there's just really smart people who are paying super close attention to all kinds of different things, whether that's the federal laws in other countries, laws at the state level. And everyone is sort of watching how technology develops on the technologist end. The activists
that technologist end is really interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to mention that we on this show talked about when you were talking about the technologists and you said, hey, they will create technology sometimes to work around an issue. I thought of Ray Hunter, and
Yeah.
we covered Ray Hunter on this show, and I even did a video on my YouTube channel of how to set up Ray Hunter on the devices. But in case some of the newer listeners out there, essentially there are cell site simulators or surveillance networks out there that are being set up that masquerade as legit cell phone towers that your device connects to. And of course, once you connects to that tower, it gets to collect all your calls and information and everything that are being sent across that. And so EFF's, I guess rally here was for people to go and get these little 4G hubs, and you could install this software on it, and it essentially would have a way to spot these fake towers. And if you found one, you could report it directly to EFF. So I drove around for months with one of these things, and I guess thankfully, but also unfortunately, never came
Yeah.
across one of the fake surveillance towers. But that just popped in my head when you mentioned that the technologists can sometimes find a way around it, which I think is equally as powerful of a solution or way to fight a problem. Is just, all right, we'll go elsewhere. We'll create our own tools to track it down or find it.
Yeah,
this is very cool.
there's a sort of theory about how change happens in the world. I'm not going to go into this whole thing because I still haven't read the book that I was supposed to read when I started at EFF about it. But the idea is, you can change things through the law, you can change things through code, you can change things through, God, there's two others or one other, and I'm going to forget. And it's a good thing that no one's going to know, probably, because they didn't read the book either.
Or
anyway,
it's a riddle.
The point is,
it's a riddle that you have to answer in the comment section below. It was
yeah. It's the point, really is that there aren't any other organizations that have that technologist team. And so some of the stuff that EFF has done that is the most interesting is stuff like Ray Hunter, where, all the props in the world to other civil liberties organizations, but they rarely build. They don't have the team to build things like Ray Hunter and to build things. I mean, I'll get into this more, but to build things like Privacy Badger or CertBot, or HTTPS Everywhere or Let's Encrypt. These are all things that EFF has created because, there is a lever you can pull, and we're always sort of looking at what the lever is depending on the fight. And, there's always the fight is often the same fight over and over. One of the reasons Ray Hunter it exists is that we're pretty sure we know where cops are using these cell site simulators, but there's so much secrecy around it. And so what's the lever there, right? Sometimes it's a FOIA request, sometimes a freedom of information request, sometimes it's a piece of code like Ray Hunter, sometimes it's a lawsuit, sometimes it's all three, and ultimately people, let's say law enforcement, government, companies, they all try to do the same thing. I mean, over time, there's sort of we know people are going to get surveilled at protests, right? So we look at the places where people and who has been sort of infringed, whose rights have been infringed in the past. It's still true online. It's still true in the world we live in today. And we're sort of always just looking at the new way that technology can either help people, protect their rights, or in some cases infringe on them further. And that's how Ray Hunter comes up. It's very hard to find out where a cell site simulator is unless you can detect it. So now you can build your own, and you can build your own detector and go to a protest and see if the cops are using a cell site simulator. And that data is really useful over time.
And the thing that makes this so much more important, just to put an exclamation point on it, although I don't think it even needs it, is when you talk about people's ability to fight things that they to push back against things that the government doing, or fight against things that we know is wrong throughout history. So many things come to mind. We've got a very long history in the United States, as well as other countries have history as well, of people fighting and being able to fix things that were wrong, right? One of the ways people are able to do that is through protesting. when you start having technology being used to surveil, track, and identify every single person within a protest, what you do is you actually weaken people's ability to come together to be able to push back against these things. So maybe the protest that's happening, whatever political party you're part of or your own personal beliefs, you don't believe in. But protesting itself is a very important part of people being able to have change happen. And when you weaken it by making it so that everyone goes, I don't want to go to that protest because I don't want them to know who I am. I don't want them to know my name. I don't want to go to jail. I have a family to support. I have to keep my job. I have to do this. Now you've weakened people's ability to gather. And when you weaken people's ability to gather, you weaken their ability to make any change happen. And when you look at that, the way that journalism has gone, which I don't even think it really exists anymore, outside of independent journalists, like all of these things that were there to protect us before have been weakened by the abuse, most recently, of technology to attempt to weaken them. And so it's just such an important thing. I can't emphasize how important it is to fight for these kind of things or to try to stop this type of thing, because it's not just one movement. It's the ability to ever push back is at risk, in my mind, is how I see it.
Free
Anyway.
speech.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So,
And a lot of people are now gathering online, right? And that's a form of protest that can happen. You can reach out to people online. You can use platforms and make your voice
Social
heard.
media, yep.
I'm not going to say that it's like always going to make a difference, but of course, as soon as that happens, you get laws and regulations around what kinds of online things people can do and how much you can do anonymously. So protesting, as it moved, in some ways, as it moved online, in addition to in person, is it really surprising you see age verification and identity verification laws?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to spend some time on that. We're going to spend some time on that.
Well, our next question, Jason, and this is we've been talking about this in the last 10 minutes. But is there any other ways? What are some of the ways the EFF fights issues, and what are some examples of how the community is part of the solution, besides maybe protesting? Are there other things?
There are, I mean, frankly, groups like what's the name of the Linux group, the Linux Chicks?
Linux Chicks
I'm
of
sorry.
Los Angeles. No problem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, groups like that actually, meeting up with people who care about the same sort of nerdy stuff that you do is an important way to find people and share things that ultimately groups often have like a bigger voice than 50 people. So we have worked a lot with different groups around the country that are just community groups that care about these things, and people forming those groups is really important because they can make a difference. But if you're just a lone, security analyst or something, I mean, one of the things that just really blows my mind is that over the last 10, 15 years, people have encrypted most of the World Wide Web. Most websites are encrypted, and that's in large part, there's a bunch of different steps involved and people and groups that helped, but people have to care about that at the sort of developer level. They have to understand why that's important, and EFF, built something with other groups, Mozilla, the Mozilla Foundation, I believe, and some researchers. But like, you have to implement the certificate. Like, we can build the certificate authority all we want, but you have to at your individual level be the one that encrypts it and decides this website that I'm making or this thing I'm hosting needs this kind of protection. I mean, open source people have done a lot. They come out a lot when they're aware that something can get sort of things can be better or things can be worse. People just who code and who work on open source stuff have this great, incredible sort of innate understanding of these issues that a lot of other people don't because they're just not familiar with them. So all the work people do to protect open source stuff to work on it is actually really important to just building a better alternative to everything else that's out there. I mean, we don't want walled gardens for everything, frankly, even if I love my MacBook. Sorry, everyone. I also have other devices that I only kind of understand how to use, but are very useful for all sorts of things. So, I mean, at the community level, often it's just going to a city town hall. I mean, like, one of the things that we've done is really focus on the local level in the last 5-10 years or so at EFF, because a lot of surveillance is being, we've all sort of seen the way that police at the smaller and smaller police departments at the local level are becoming more militarized. And that includes surveillance. That includes surveillance devices, whether that's flock cameras that read license plates now are becoming a huge issue for people, all the way to just sort of like using cell-side simulators, like you said before. I mean, people can go to, there's a couple things. So people can go to town halls. They can go to sort of look at what their city is doing. And at their individual city level, I mean, if you don't want to leave your house, go to atlasofsurveillance.org. You can look at exactly sort of what information your police department that's near you can collect because of the surveillance devices that they use. That's a website we put together that has volunteers that can basically just research different assignments. You log in. There's a little bit of a webinar you want to do first because it's not super clear, but we've got 15,000 data points collected by mostly volunteers about different devices all over the country, which law enforcement agencies have access to what. And that's the kind of stuff that's actually public information. It's just not always clear to people how to find it. And we just put it together, we crowdsource. And whether it's like laws at the city level, laws at the state level, just sort of knowing how these devices work and sort of, I mean, I don't understand what an ALPR does. I've lost track at this point of all the different things these technologies can do, but that's actually really important for the technologists out there to analyze these things. And whether it's analyzing a device, talking to your local politician, figuring out, why is there a flock device on this corner? When did that happen? Who decided that? Can we do anything about that if we don't like that there? And we have a volunteer page also that has like additional information about coding projects. I'll tell you more eventually in the conversation, but we've got things that people can do, and ultimately, like with the internet now, you can do all kinds of stuff from your house that you couldn't have done 20 years ago. And it really, EFF doesn't get anything done alone. I mean, we just don't.
It's true.
I
mean, we look at you all as the superheroes, but there's a lot of people involved in that behind the scenes to help that superhero win. And Zeb, I think about the UK, and I can't endorse this, but the Blade Runners got a pretty good solution to the cameras. I feel like they're in the UK. Now, I don't endorse that. I don't encourage that, of course. But the UK, I thought, came up with a rather clever solution there, at least the community. Anyways, moving on.
So let's now get into the dream world here, Jason. Imagine you had a magical easy button that with a single press, what current issue that the EFF is battling would you want to make disappear overnight, or not even disappear, but suddenly have everybody realize this was wrong, this is the right way, fixed at the click of a button?
Oh, wouldn't that be magical?
I love that. Yeah. Well, we do say that we are sort of working to put ourselves out of business. If we solve everything, we won't have anything left to do, but that's the world we want, right? Like, luckily, that's unlikely to happen. But if you zoom out, I would say two things are sort of really, really zoom out. Two things are sort of an issue that I would love to just make go away. And the first is, I'm just going to say writ large, I'll say surveillance, but that, basically I don't want to tell people too much about how to think, but I will say that a lot of research has been done, and surveillance does not stop crime. At the local level, it does not stop crime. At the federal level, it does not stop crime. You catch some people, but I would love for people to just sort of go out there, sit down, go into the catalogs of all the research that has been done, and recognize that wherever they are, that more surveillance does not equal safety, right? And if people knew that and understood it, that actually we are restricting ourselves from the kind of safety that we can have when we have privacy, not making things safer, that I'd press that easy button in a heartbeat if it meant half of EFF didn't have to do anything anymore, including myself. It would be worth it. And that includes
powerful one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the one that I've really learned a lot more about since starting at EFF, because I cared so much about certain things when I started, and learned so much more from being there about all the different ways that surveillance can sort of inhibit people from doing things that they want, and how much surveillance is capable of now, and the devices that we have, and whether it's just in the street, online, Palantir, Prism, whatever you want to think about. So surveillance goes away because it doesn't really help. That's step one. And step two for the easy button. And you could say that this is surveillance related, but the really big threat is age verification right now. That's one of those that crosses the surveillance and free speech lines. That's sort of like, oh no, this is, all surveillance limits people's, actions, but this one is a real nightmare for both privacy and for free speech, because if you can't speak privately, you can't see content, all those things without giving up your private information, you're either going to have less privacy or less free speech. You got to pick. Once age verification is a law, that's what you have to decide on for yourself, and that's just not a good bargain for people to have to make. So those two. And if Zeb, if you can get I assume you have one of those buttons ready for me that I can push.
Unfortunately, I'm still learning the coding side of it. But as soon as I've got it, I'll send it
Maybe
through.
AI
I'll
will
mail
help
it
with
to
that.
you.
Yeah. You could vibe code it, Zeb, right through there.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about surveillance, and you're talking about that it doesn't help stop crime. It reminds me, I walked into Walmart, unfortunately, the other day, and I walked in an aisle to pick up something because I was sick and I needed to grab something. It was the closest thing. And as I'm sitting there in the aisle, I keep hearing this bing, bing. And I look over, and there is this camera with a screen showing me. And every few seconds, and I mean every few seconds, this thing is binging as I'm trying to find the level of the particular Tylenol or whatever I was looking for at the time. And I got so mad. I was like flicking the thing off as I was, and I'm not proud of that, but I was so mad by the time I was leaving that store, because I'm like, it just kept binging and binging to let me know I was being surveilled. And I'm like, if I was going to steal this, I could care less that camera's there. And people who steal could care less that stupid camera's there. They don't care.
Yeah.
The only thing it stops is it just stops me from wanting to shop there. Meaning, it's just stopping the regular person who wasn't going to steal anyways from enjoying their experience. And it's just so ridiculous, because crime's not down, robbery's not, all the surveillance and things are not better. And that's what I keep telling people as a father who has kids. I don't feel like with all of this technology, my kids are safer than ever before. And so all of this stuff that they've done to supposedly protect the kids. And then, for me, what is the greatest threat when I think about Roblox? Roblox is where all of these adults hang out. And how is age verification going to stop a predator from going on Roblox? In fact, they don't want to give their driver's license because they want to sit in Roblox with the kids so that they can prey on them. It's just a stupid law that fixes nothing. And that is how all of these type of things work,
Yeah.
in my mind, anyway. I'm gonna get on a lot of soapboxes as we do this. Just so you
I
all know.
love
I should have
it.
done a warning.
I'm really
time.
glad you're doing it because I can just sit back and listen, and
Yeah.
you're correct 100%. So that's great for me.
And Ryan, me and my husband don't shop at Walmart for those
Yeah.
reasons.
I'm just oh
can't
my
go
gosh.
there.
They put them now everywhere. I'm like, I hated this store before. Now I really hate this store. But anyways,
I don't know if you all are familiar with the sort of there was a panic in the last few years about theft at like CVS and Walgreens stores. At least in the San Francisco area, this became a big thing. There was sort of a talking point that there were these like gangs, like the mafia, stealing all these things and selling them. And in the area that I live in, they filled up all the stores with cases so that you had to get a key to unlock pretty much everything. And no one goes in them because I mean it's just it was if you want to shoot yourself in the foot as a like small store in the age of Amazon in San Francisco, make it so you have to ask someone when you want deodorant.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and that's, and on
Jeez.
top of, so the surveillance wasn't working, right? Clearly they already had all those cameras. They had a security guard, that wasn't stopping anyone. So they just locked everything up. And that's sort of where we're at with age verification to me. It's sort of
Yeah.
like a lock everything up and put it behind this special gate plan. And after this happened at these stores, just no one shopped there. And also like they realized that the sort of evidence they had about crime and the cost it was having or theft was all just totally bogus.
Yeah.
More research came out and it was just made up. And not to say that there aren't, believe me, plenty of people
there are criminals
steal the
criminals
deodorant.
that-
Yeah, there are criminals. Is that really the reason that you're that you're losing money in 2026? I don't think so. I mean, and then actually just the proof was in the pudding that the research showed that wasn't true. And I feel like that's where we're at with the internet too.
Yeah.
And the other crazy thing is as well, okay, so they've now got these wonderful glass cabinets. Well, that just means these hordes of people running in will be running in with hammers and sledgehammers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
More
exactly.
damage.
because
It's not a
never
bulletproof
stops.
cabinet.
Yeah.
Like
It never stopped the jewelry thieves or the Apple store thieves when they're all hidden underneath. They just go in there with a sledgehammer, smash it, drop the sledgehammer, grab what they want. And now not only have you lost all the goods, but you've got the cost of replacing the cabinets. So it's just
criminals will criminal. I mean, they rob banks
Criminals will
with their
criminal.
vaults. Like, there's there's no way to stop criminals from criminaling. It's gonna happen.
they're the ways are not surveillance and stricter, harsher laws and things like that. I mean, we've already seen, just to put a finer point on it, in Australia, they've had an age verification law for a while.
Yeah.
And the research has shown that I believe 4 out of 5 kids are getting around the bans. And I'm not saying that means we should, not ever take action against, criminals or something like that. But these are kids being told that they're not allowed to use a thing that isn't actually, for the most part, even remotely harmful. I'm not going to say the internet's perfect, but 4 out of 5 kids agree it's pretty good and they want to use it. And that's just evidence that, lawmakers should be looking at, just like they should be looking at that in San Francisco for these stores going out of business.
All there is no way you're going life. Was it Jurassic Park? Life finds a way. None of this age verification is going to stop kids from going online and getting to where they want to go. I promise you that. Even if I don't have the solution in my head yet, they will find one. They will hack their way until they do, and that's just it's just a waste of time. It's like the DRM stuff on movies and music and video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll be like, oh, we got this new impenetrable anti-cheat thing, and the next day somebody's around it. Like, you're never gonna stop them. It's just they want the regular people to give up their ID so they can surveil. I mean, that's the whole goal behind it. Obviously.
Yeah.
Jill, I'm running into your question.
Oh, that's
go ahead.
just fine because we're talking about ID verification now, the elephant in the room.
It's the biggest thing on our minds right now on the show.
Yeah, no matter what, it's going to come up, right?
It's going to come up. And of course, it affects the open source and Linux community. How bad is the ID verification, and what does the digital future look like if it all passes? This is scary.
Yeah, I mean, so first, we are at, like I said, a sort of weird moment where some of the world has these laws and they're not going well, and they're also being fought in court because of the problems that they have. That's true in the US as much as it is in other countries. And so it's hard to say what's going to happen. Also, look, 10 years ago, what would you have said that the future was going to look like today? When it comes to AI, for example. And 10 years from now, do you have any idea what it's going to look like when it comes to AI? I don't.
Yeah.
I think that it's very hard to know what could happen and how bad it could get. But there is definitely a spectrum, and the spectrum could be very bad. It's any time a law is passed that requires a platform or a website or a service to have age verification, people are going to lose privacy or they're going to lose free speech. That's just the result. And I don't know if that's going to end up, let's say with digital ID, with device ID, where your phone is connected to, your identity, or your computer or whatever is connected to it. As you know, in the open source community, that's a sort of a focus of some people and some politicians. But there is a chance that the internet becomes sort of like the web, if you will, and then like the gray web that basically just is more annoying to get to, and like without privacy, or missing people who are afraid to give up their information for good reason. And that mostly would affect people who have had their rights, endangered in the past. The groups that are basically either, on the one end, they have to give up their privacy to do it because it's just necessary for them to get to where they're going online, or that don't know what it means to do it. Like that's who's going to populate that sort of gray area. And the rest of us, we'll probably find everyone listening to this, like most of you will probably experience a very annoying internet if this is what happens, and one where you have to make a decision for a while or often about what you're willing to give up in terms of privacy, and how much you trust some organization that you've never heard of named Persona. I don't know. Does that sound trustworthy? Look them up. Oh, they had a data breach. Oh, geez.
That's what I was going to say. All these companies that are collecting these ID verifications, nearly every one of them have been already breached. And by the way, it's terrible when people get breached, because obviously it's a huge loss and things, but it's almost like, thank goodness in a way too, to prove the point that there is no such thing as perfect security. Even if these companies did do things intelligently, which a lot of them don't, a lot of the ways they're being breached are just, security 101 things. But even if they did have perfect security, there's no such thing. So they could still be breached.
There's no such thing.
You're leaving
Do you have
your
people
data
working there? If you have people working there, you're probably going to fail. I mean, so the result of these laws passing is going to be, I think, two things. One, just a much more annoying, less private internet as a daily user. And two, people censoring themselves and platforms censoring people. And something I've learned that's really, it's almost like a law of nature. Anytime a platform, a website, whatever, has to separate out some content from other types of content because some of it is, let's say, more dangerous in some way, right? Moderation, whatever you want to call it, like they over moderate, they over censor. They have to, because the tools aren't very good and the liability for failing and missing something is high with a law like age verification would usually require. And so you're going to have a place where you're not going to know what's being censored. you're not going to know what privacy you're giving up because you're not going to know if you can trust the company. You're not going to know where the data is going to go. The law may tell you that they can't sell it. Okay, well, that really stopped Facebook. I mean, there's lots of reasons that it's hard to know like what exactly is going to happen, but there will be data breaches. There will be over censoring. Young people will not be able to access things that. Let me give you just a quick story. On Reddit, a bunch of EU countries, they just launched age verification requirements for people visiting from those countries. So immediately I'm looking and seeing like, well, what are they censoring? So they're censoring things that are tagged, just as an example, NSFW. You look at things on Reddit that are tagged NSFW, usually they're tagged that way by the poster, and they're not explicit. They're not necessarily dangerous or, for adults only. It's someone talking about their depression, and they're just sort of thinking about NSFW as a trigger warning, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that's going to be hidden behind that privacy gate, that you either give up your privacy if you're an adult, and you maybe can't even see it anymore if you're a young person. That is the future we would have, I think, with age verification laws. I don't think we'll know that future right now. We're in the middle of that fight, right now with the Kids Act, which is basically COSA, if you're familiar with that. And I don't know how that's going to go. Hopefully your listeners can help out.
It just passed the House, as I understand. And so now it goes to the Senate, which just makes this fight the most critical timing ever to have you on the show, from that aspect of it. And so if this thing passes, this gets really bad. And along those lines, I want to ask, like, who's behind this for real? Because never in my life have I seen coordinated laws
across the world,
states, and then across the world. Everyone pushing. All of a sudden, all these people who can't get along ever and never agree on anything ever, suddenly, coordinatedly get together and want to pass all of these ID verification, age verification laws across the world. Who's behind? You guys have to have more information on who's really behind
Can
this.
you
and
imagine
what do they really want?
If they wanted to end homelessness? Apparently, they could all work together to do it if they just found the right cause, and who knew?
Yeah.
Just named it the Kids Act to save the homeless.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of this is connected to the tech lash, the sort of backlash against big tech, which in many ways is like entirely justified. I wish Facebook gave me a lot more freedom than it does. They should have all kinds of laws against what Facebook does as a business model. We have lots of thoughts about that. But people are so much more easily convinced of a sort of save the children angle to anything. So, of course, the first thing that's going to be, crossing both sides of the aisle is for kids. It's the tech lash for kids. I mean, it's not for kids. Right? It's for some people. I don't want to say that everyone has bad motivations, but you have people on the right who really want to stop young people from seeing things that are liberal or progressive. You have people on the left that really kind of hate the way that it's so easy to run into content that's right wing, and they both think this kind of thing, I mean, at some level, will solve the problem. Somehow they both think it will solve the problem for both of them. People in the middle, they are sort of like, well, I do hate Mark Zuckerberg. Fair enough.
Well, that's universal. That's the other thing that was a coordinated thing that, worked across all countries. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a lot of different groups on the left and the right that have come together. They have both sort of ended up at the surveillance and censorship angle because ultimately they don't really know how the internet works. They don't really think about how young people use the internet. They don't think about all they really think about are the people who have had some serious problems because of the internet. And we're talking about kids, who have bought fentanyl-laced drugs on Snapchat. It's not a huge number, but it's a number that's big enough that, those parent groups are serious about this. And so you have parents, you have right-wing and left-wing political groups, you have politicians who want to just get something done, people who want to, punish the tech companies, they think, without realizing that laws like this will actually just cement large companies in their place and sort of force you to use them forever because no one else can afford to build the filters and the age verification tools and all those things that will be required. It's a mix of just like a perfect storm of agreement. But I will say, just so so you can place it in context, this is the same fight in a lot of ways that we had with the Communications Decency Act in the 90s. It's often a new flavor, and this is a new flavor with a whole lot of anger at some really big companies that make a lot of money. And
well, what's interesting
and I think
is
that's understandable.
You hear about Facebook lobbying on behalf of this, and my understanding is some of these tech companies are for this because it takes the liability off of them. So, there's this idea that, hey, if I'm Facebook, I run the social media group. If I let a bunch of predators talk to a bunch of kids, I could get in trouble for that. I have to hire people to surveil my platform that I created that opened things up to the world and made it highly addictive and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to pay to do that. So if I write laws that say it's illegal to have kids on there and the kids end up on there anyways, because we know they will, then I don't have liability for it. And there's a lot of people who think that is a big push for motivation for, say, Facebook to want these kind of laws, because I've understood that they've even written and handed through their lobbyists the legislation and laws fully written out, and then just do some big donations and go, again, allegedly is what I hear.
That happened with COSA for sure. I mean, COSA, there was an Elon Musk X written version of COSA that was the most recent version before we've moved on to the Kids Act. Yeah, that guy knows how to protect kids, and neither does Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like, yeah, you're absolutely right that these businesses are going to. This is often the case that people think regulation hurts the big guys, and sometimes it does. Of course, sometimes you say you can't spray that chemical. That's going to hurt the bottom line in some way for some companies, right? But this isn't like that. This is a company that has been building the chemical for a long time and already has it in place. And they're like, yeah, make it so that, wait, this is backwards. That wasn't a great analogy.
We know it's poisonous. We know it causes cancer, but don't allow us to get sued for it.
In this case,
any ability to throw any legislation against us. That's what they're doing.
It is blatant. They are literally trying to get and look, I'm at EFF. We have a lot of thoughts about Section 230, a lot of thoughts about free speech and what platforms should and shouldn't be responsible for. And it's too deep to go in that rabbit hole. But if you can see a company writing out their liability for lawsuits that exist as they write in responsibility to do something that only the richest companies can do, you're sort of like, guys, this is like clearly they're the reason they're just lobbying you to pass this bill and pretending it's going to hurt them. Like, does everyone not see that? And I think that people do see it, as certainly, your audience does. But I think with the Kids Act, we have a real chance at stopping it from passage. The same is true of the social media ban that would happen in California. If anyone's in California, that's a real problem as well, both of those laws. But yeah, these platforms are often for it. I mean, you've got age verification companies, you've got platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and who knows what TikTok's doing, but now they're a US company and they probably want to keep being one and keep being, popular. And these companies are only going to get bigger if the law requires this kind of filtering, because I mean, think about what could happen now if look, who used TikTok 10 years ago? A company coming up, and you know this from the open source community, you want to let 1,000 flowers bloom. You want to see what all those different options are. You want a Discord to pop up. You want all these different things to exist. And if you have to pay for over censoring, you have to pay liability if you don't. You have to check people's ages. You can't afford to start a company like that does, community building or user generated content. So, yeah, this is good for them in a lot of ways. We think that a lot with a lot of regulation. But your audience knows that.
Yeah. Well, I think here's my thought. If this age verification passes, the kids are still going to be on all the sites that they wanted to be on anyway, so it doesn't do anything to protect them. But parents may be forced to go in there and enter ID. And here, I want to work with EFF's technology group. I'm just putting this out there. You guys don't have to agree to it right away or not. But I miss MySpace Tom, and my thought is we make an app, right, where you complete whatever age verification, but it uses MySpace Tom's face because he's the friend of everybody, MySpace Tom, and so everyone gets verified as MySpace Tom, and we will just be like. We'll play their own game. We'll play them at their own game. So that's my pitch for the technology group at EFF. Yeah.
I'll put it to them.
Yeah, I think it's genius.
That's all I can do.
All of a sudden, Facebook has 10 million MySpace Toms as their verified age. Yeah. I think it would be brilliant.
Well, one of the things I'm concerned about is like in the classroom. Now, the Raspberry Pi and other single board computers have become really popular as a teaching tool. And what's that going to do in the classroom? The teacher's going to have to do a session on the ID verification before they even start their project. I mean,
in some cases, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And you're just now getting kids into Raspberry Pis. Come on, everybody! Like,
everyone's loving Linux through a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah,
it's I know kids who are like 15 that are friends of mine's children that are just like learning how Raspberry Pis work, and they're so excited about them. And
I love that.
It's a cool thing that's happening. As and this is before AI, but just as stuff becomes more accessible, Linux becomes more usable, accessible in the broad sense. For people who don't know how coding works and everything like that. I am worried that things like, age verification are trying to cut off at the knees, not just open source, but just like the curiosity that people have about how the internet works, about what's out there, the exploration that you can do, all of that is the same. Yeah, it's all the same mindset,
Yeah. So Jeff, another quick question, if we may. We're talking about big business and lobbyists, but is it going to affect different people in a different way, or is it all the same sort of thing? So, what's going to be the impact on youth, journalists, political dissidents, and the general public? Or is it the whole area is going to affect people at some time or another?
I think everyone would be affected. I think that's, like I said earlier, I do think there's a question you'll have to ask yourself about what privacy you're willing to give up and whether or not you're willing to go to a site and put in that information. And you're always going to be a little unsure of what's behind that censorship wall and what's happening to that ID or that age verification info. And you should be curious, right? That's not paranoid. That's just being aware of what happens when you put in laws like these. But the things that sort of, I think, the people affected, the dissidents, like you say, the journalists, okay. Last year, we did some analysis on abortion-related content. And after the U.S. changed Roe v. Wade, after the Supreme Court overturned it, and before, but more so after by a large margin, content about healthcare and sort of like how healthcare works in that setting was over-censored immediately on Instagram, right, on all these different platforms, because this is complicated stuff. Like, people doing the moderation, the tools doing the moderation, they don't know whether it's legal to share the website that you can get pills if you live in Alabama or if you live in California or whatever. These are complicated laws, and so they just over-censor. It's just suddenly your page that had 5,000 followers isn't getting any views. And we tracked a bunch of groups that had reported these issues, and that's what you have with laws like these, but just writ large. Imagine you overturn the sort of liability. You make platforms liable for what they show to people in a way that is much sort of stricter than what it is now. Suddenly, those dissidents don't have an audience, right? Because political information, I mean, the dissident, it's in the name, right? They're sort of challenging the status quo. Well, that might be harmful to young people. So that's going to go behind the censorship wall. Things about a journalist's story that's investigating someone in power, you can bet that's going to go behind the wall, because if you're liable for it, you don't want someone in power, which is who these laws would ultimately benefit, coming after you and saying that lawsuit story about the person that I allegedly, assaulted is a dangerous story for children to read, and so it should be behind that censorship wall. I mean, that's in the playbook for these people, right? And so any law. I mean, Trump passed a law recently, signed a law signed a bill into law that he said he was going to use. I mean, he was a little bit joking, but is he? That he said he was going to use to get rid of bad stuff about him online. And this was like, I know that everybody sort of jokes about the way these people talk about their intentions and their actions, but people passing these age verification laws or writing them have said they want to use them to remove content about being
negative
trans,
comments, unfavorable coverage.
Content that's about them, content that's about the ideologies they don't like, all these things.
I understand that there is now, and maybe there's always been, but I'm aware of it now, rapid response teams that politicians are utilizing that basically go and look for, deviance against their policies and things on social media. So it's another way of surveillance. It's another way of being able to attack and remove opposite opinions. And I don't care what political party you're on, you don't want this. Today it may work for your political party. Tomorrow the other political party is in place and it gets used against you. So wherever you stand politically, this is dumb. This doesn't work for anybody.
That's right.
It's bad all the way around, which is why we should all go back to MySpace. I don't know why that's on my mind. Anyway,
I think because we all dream of a perfect time online, and that must have been yours.
MySpace. Where I had my little music page. You could find out what music I like.
Your top 8 or whatever.
Exactly.
Aw. Mine was the BBSs before there was the web.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's usually what was. I mean, here's the funny thing, right? The internet that we love is what we grew up with. Well, what are we going to do if suddenly the internet that kids are growing up with is this weird, sterile place? Of course, it will be for some, and it won't be for the others who know how to get around it. But ultimately,
Dark web,
it's not going to solve the problem. Yeah. I mean, does anyone know that Tor? Like, you can just download the Tor browser, guys.
Oh yeah, exactly. I love Tor. Yes.
Jill, really? What do you do on Tor, Jill?
Yeah, interesting. Look, we've all wondered how the dark web works. It's important to know for just common knowledge.
Exactly.
I think it's a good idea to understand. And no, the Tor browser, I mean, honestly, you talked about political dissidents and journalists, but that's the kind of thing that, that same technology that protects those people is also, can it be used to get around a ban that's like this, like an age verification law? Yeah, of course it can.
Yeah.
That's how
I think when they hit
works.
phones and the phone carriers is where it's going to be very difficult to get around. And we know that's where they're going to go for next. Like personal computers, very easy to do a workaround. When you start getting into cell phones, the really only workaround left is Graphene OS, and there's not a lot of carriers that wouldn't comply, or probably all of them would. So even if you change your operating system, the carrier may require it. It becomes really. That's why we just have to stop this thing dead in the tracks, because if it gets any footing at all, it's going to go for the cell phones, and that's when everybody pretty much is going to be giving up their personal rights, because who can give up their cell phone these days? We all could, but let's be honest, most of us wouldn't.
We're not going to. I mean, the one of the things that is keeping these laws from passing is the sort of, like you said, there are businesses that actually will benefit, that are pushing it, but they all want another business in a lot of ways to bear the responsibility. So, you know, each of them wants a different kind of verification. Like a company that runs a platform might want it at the device level. The device makers want it at the platform level. The platform might, or the government's like, we'll do it at the government level. And there's no real good way to do it that's not going to screw over somebody. And you're right that devices, it's out there. I mean, it's certainly, the open source community fought back, but that bill is still in California. I believe that bill is still out there.
They keep trying to pass it, boy. They aren't giving up. It's amazing.
And speaking of that, Jason, as these laws get passed, what is the EFS playbook to challenge it? And which arguments do you expect to be most persuasive? How do we get rid of these laws?
Well, I mean, some of it is, I have gotten, it is helpful to say that people, I think actually like people are aware that when the left and the right agree on something, it's probably a bad idea. If the EU... If the EU and Trump both think something is a good idea, that's actually not a good thing. Like that's a really bad thing. So, there are quotes from politicians like Marsha Blackburn where she has said, I want to pass COSA because I want to keep people from seeing certain things, right? I mean, these are just very clear statements that politicians have made. And whether that's on the left or the right, like I think Ryan, you did a great job explaining, like this is not something you want going forward because who knows who's going to be in office. Oh, you've got Trump to censor the internet for now. Well, wait until it's Commandant Mamdani or whatever. You're not going to be happy then if you're on the right. And ultimately, these are laws that aren't going to work. Like we said, 4 out of 5 kids in Australia are still going around the bans. Most, I don't know if stats are helpful for some people, but for me, that's crazy. 4 out of 5. So they've done it and it doesn't work. Okay, well, that seems like something we shouldn't put a ton of money into, right? I mean, it's not like our budget's going great at the federal or state level, pretty much anywhere. There's also a sort of weird... I guess I want to say that kids are always the sort of punching bag, but like in this case, this hits adults. People seem to not realize that at some level, that like this is not a law for kids. This is a law for everyone because you cannot know who the kid is unless you check everyone. There's no way to do it where it just affects young people. So what you're really saying is you want to check everyone's ID across the country or the state, not just kids, so you can push the kids over here or the people who don't want to give you their ID over here. And that's, to me, the left and the right, mostly, when they hear that, they agree like, oh, this is just surveillance, right? Like that's what this sounds like. So those seem to work for me. I mean, in our playbook right now, yes, the House did pass the Kids Act. They passed it in a weird way. I'm still not sure I understand how the House works, but they didn't pass it because they had the votes. They sort of passed it because they didn't have the votes. They passed it on suspension, and you lobbyists out there will know what that means. The Senate and the House don't agree on what this should look like because the left and the right don't agree on what it should look like. The parents groups don't like this version that just passed the House. Your Common Sense Media, those groups, they don't like this version. They don't think it's strong enough. So that's one side. On the other side, they're just as worried in some cases as we are about this censorship. So they aren't going to make it any stronger. So to me, even though across the world it seems like that people are coming together on this in terms of how these laws are written and who bears responsibility and sort of at the finer levels, people are not agreeing on it. And that just tells me, that
But somehow they're passing this stuff. They don't agree on it. They don't like the language, but pass it anyways. We'll figure it out later. Is that normal?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is normal, but what that means is that that's a weak bill. That means that what they end up with is either, and when I say weak, I mean weak either in court or it's not, it doesn't have the power that, certain groups wanted it to have, which it's hard. Like, I don't know if any of these laws are going to pass at the federal level because the right and the left, actually, when it came down to it, they don't agree. I mean, the House did pass it, but again, it passed a complex, like weird, watered down version that the left doesn't like. And now in the Senate, the right is in power. And so it doesn't, I think this is actually a chance for us to stop this bill. And we've been doing it now with COSA for years. I mean, we've stopped it every year for 3 years now because people don't agree.
But they just keep bringing new flavors of things back around until they're going to get this passed because the lobbyist is so powerful. There's two things I want to mention here. One is another way that people's power has been removed and why organizations like EFF are really getting down to our final hope is the lobbyist situation where now your local senators, your local Congress people, they don't really care about your donation because if they get one of the big corporations in their contingency to donate to them, then that is 100,000, maybe 500,000, maybe 1,000,000 of your individual donations in one foul swoop. So they don't really need you anymore. So now your letters were like, hey, I'm not going to vote for you if you don't do this. They don't have the same weight to them anymore because as long as they've got, Facebook in their pocket, they know they can run $100 million campaign to, make all of the news about them go away or seem like it's not so serious anyways. And so it's just another way of limiting the power that people have to fight back, which ultimately, in my big conspiracy, get your tinfoil hats on, is what I think all of this stuff is about continuing to remove people's ability to ever push back on the governments. They don't want it there. It's too inconvenient. But the other thing is these laws are always written under the same, every time your rights get taken away, it's always under the two same subheadings: to prevent terrorism, to protect the kids. And like you said, this doesn't just affect kids, but it's got a nice name to it. It's got such a nice name to it that the senators who don't understand technology, we've all seen them try to cross-examine a tech company, and it's embarrassing. And they clearly have no idea how the internet works or how a phone even works to this day. But so they've got these big companies telling them, hey, pass this thing. It's going to protect the kids. Maybe these senators don't have bad intentions. Maybe they just do
Some of them don't.
and think they're going to help the kids. And when you name something Protect the Kids Act, well, what monster wouldn't want to protect the kids? So it's like, it's all so cleverly disguised to make this stuff pass. Like in this case, pass even when people don't even really know what's in it and can't agree on whether it's good or not. Like it's madness.
Yeah, and then they lump it in with lots of other laws that get passed that they think the people that don't like this law will like. So that it gets
they'll pass it
to get
anyway.
everyone to
Like,
agree.
yeah, we'll give you your $100,000 for your bridge that's crumbling if you say yes to this. Otherwise, you don't get your funds to fix your bridge. Well, darn it, I guess I'll protect the kids then because I need a bridge.
So, Jason, on the next question, a lot of our readers and listeners don't come from the USA. And I've noticed on your website that you discuss issues worldwide. So as an American-based company, how much influence pressure are you able to put to change the mind, for example, of the UK government, which has just passed the Social Media Act, the same way as you've just said, 4 out of 5 kids in Australia have bypassed it anyway. Yet the good old UK says, "Oh, let's take that one step further," because they're also censoring 16 and 17-year-olds and giving them some sort of curfew. So, do you have any pressure to put on these guys? Do you have counterparts in other countries in the world that you talk to? What's the scope on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question because, a lot of people, if you're in the US, you hear maybe of EFF, your ACLUs, different groups like that. But what you don't know is that there is just a shadowy cabal of digital rights groups around the world. And EFF might be the largest, and we might have been the first, but there are some people in most countries doing this work, and we do have staff in places like the UK and Brazil and Denmark and London and Brussels. But we are primarily a U.S. centered organization with a global membership and global reach. Those people are fantastic, but they couldn't do the work that they do in those countries or at the sort of EU level or the international human rights level without the partners that we have. People like, if you're in the EU or the UK, you're probably hopefully familiar with EDRI, the European Digital Rights Network, which is sort of a group of digital rights organizations. The internet and EFF together, I think, have launched 1,000 NGOs. There's a lot of partners out there. And a lot of the work we do with partners in the US too. We do a lot of amicus briefs with ACLU, either national or at the local state level. And we have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience and a lot of staff that not every digital rights group has, but we know who to reach out to in Canada when they're talking about passing an age verification law like C-22. They reach out to us too, and the same is true across the world. And we ultimately work together, and we can email a lot of people, whether that's supporters or groups or whoever, activists, lawyers around the world. So yeah, we have a lot of pressure. It's amazing. And the partners, I'll just say they get along pretty well. I think they all pretty much agree most of the time.
Well, that's really good to know, because it then also means that you're getting different perspectives of the same law. And, Australia went one route, UK's gone another route, France are going another route and all the rest of it. But if you just stay segmented in your own little bubble, then maybe you're not getting some really good ideas from other people around the world. So that's really, really great to hear that it is a worldwide movement that wants to try and stop these ridiculous laws, because that's the only word for it. The thing that I find the craziest is you talked about your technology department and they understand how the internet works. Who do governments employ then? Are they employing dumbos or are they employing
Have you
people
heard these
like
people
Ryan
talk
suspects?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, they are dumbos. I think that's the technical term for who they employ. There are, depending on who the lawmaker is, who the elected person is, there are some really incredible technical experts that they do have on staff. People who've worked at EFF or worked with EFF do work at the Senate level as staffers. Some of our the people that I work with at EFF worked in the House as staffers for House members. So we have a lot of communication with a lot of people, and the dumbos sometimes reach out. Honestly, not everyone does, but around the world, people are becoming more aware, I think, at the lawmaker level that they actually don't understand. Yeah, you can't be a politician most of the time and understand how all this stuff works, because you couldn't have, gotten to where you are if you spent all your time coding. So yeah, there are a lot. Look, yeah, I don't want to say there aren't any dumbos. There are, but there are some good people in some offices, for sure. Luckily,
and those are the ones that you can reach out to.
Yeah, they've taken some work to start to try to become more technically competent because of the freedom of the internet and the memes they don't want made about them anymore. So I think that's why it's important to keep the internet free. Look, last question, and then we actually have a surprise thing for you here that's really going to shock you. What can Destination Linux listeners do right now to help the EFF? I know for a fact, after hearing this incredible interview, people are going to be like, I want to do something. I need to take action. How can I join in this fight? And obviously, I want to make it very clear that this type of fight requires resources. How can our listeners donate to this cause?
Thank you for letting me get to my pitch. First of all, they can buy your shirt. No, it's a great shirt. I do love the shirt. Obviously, people should buy it. If we've set up a website, let's say website. We have a web page. Let me get technical. EFF.org/Destination Linux, and you can go there to learn about. I know. And you can go there and we'll direct you to all the right places. There's a couple things that people can do. I mean, people can donate. That's super helpful. Become a monthly subscriber. Donate once. Get a shirt. Get a hoodie. If you work somewhere that matches, if your employer is one of those employers that does matching contributions, donate through your employer. If you are a business or you work for a business that believes in a free and open internet, we have partnership opportunities for companies at our corporate partnership level. You can just email me. I'm Jason at EFF.org. But there will be information on the website about that. And of course, just support EFF as you have, if you have or become a member at the $15 a month level it's not too much. I think if you can do it, that's great. If you can do a one-time gift, that's great. It is an expensive fight. I mean, just in the sense of, like you said, it's a worldwide battle against some of these largest companies in the world. EFF's grown, but the fight has grown a lot larger than we have over the years. We're going up against the NSA. We're going up against Doge, Meta, you name it, and we're probably fighting it. We have some, I do want to give people one quick thing of hope. What do you call that? A ray of light. I don't know. I forget about how this works.
At the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Just last week. So you asked Jill, what do we do if these bills pass? Well, EFF has these three arms for a reason, and we fight a lot at the Supreme Court and at other court levels. We just won a case. Last week at the Supreme Court. That was an expansion of your privacy when it comes to what are called geofence warrants, which are basically if you were in an area with your phone when a crime went down, the cops could pretty easily write a warrant and say to your cell phone company or Google, who was in that area at this time, between this hour and this hour. Give us all the pings or whatever. All the GPS data that you have, and tell us whose phone was in that area at this time, which makes everybody a suspect. We're talking about, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. We just won at the Supreme Court for the second time. We had a case called Carpenter in 2018 that limited long-term surveillance. So geofence warrants stretched out over a long period. And we just had a win last week called Chatrie, Chatrie. Huge wins. I mean, this Supreme Court's not perfect by any means, but in some cases they do believe in privacy, and in some cases they believe in free speech. So there are wins happening. I do want to say that, and that's thanks to supporters, awesome that we can do that. And go to EFF.org/Destination Linux, and you can learn more.
Love it. And oh my gosh, that is such an honor just to be having EFF.org/Destination Linux. Jill, I don't know about you, but that kind of made my heart jump.
I know.
That's going to be ready.
I'm going to immediately put it on our website too.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And I'll go far to say this, that I believe, and Jill, I haven't talked to you about this, but I know you feel the same way, that this issue is so important that if you only have, because I know money is tight right now, if you only have enough money to donate to one person, I would rather you donate to EFF than be a patron of this show right now. Because it's that important that we stop this fight. And if you could pick both, great. But I don't know what we were going to have left for our kids. The one free place that I truly feel like is left free ish is the internet. And if we don't start putting our money where our mouth is and start putting our actions outside of just posting on social media going, I'm mad, this makes me angry. I mean, sure, that helps some, but we've got to do more than just post stuff on social media. It makes them really uncomfortable when people gather, and it makes them really uncomfortable when people have a unified movement towards something. And I think we can all get behind EFF during this time to help push this thing and stop these bills, and really make this thing at least go away for another 6 months. Because 6 months later, yes, they'll come back and try to bring it around under some new name or something else. But at least we'll have 6 months of rest, maybe. You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is as well, Ryan, if you think about it, if we don't help the EFF now, in 6 months' time, we might be censored because we're always pushing back against the government.
Shoot.
They'll go,
you're not kidding.
You got 3 million people now
You
who
never know.
downloaded this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it happened to me when I released a video. My channel was growing. I think at the time it was like gaining 5,000 subscribers every month or something in YouTube. And then I released the child slavery and tech video, and all of a sudden the subscribers stopped.
They didn't like that. Yeah.
They don't like it when you challenge, or call out things that are uncomfortable. But to me, worth it. And the channel's growing still through word of mouth. And that's just how you do it, And we'll grow anyways. We'll grow despite them. You don't need them.
One of EFF's co-founders, John Gilmore, has a saying that wait, let me get it right. Something like the internet interprets censorship as damage and routes around it. And that's sort of one of the things that I think people, if you take away something in terms of like feeling optimistic, that is something that's sort of we've all experienced how that works, right? Like you said, you've got word of mouth. Yeah, maybe your channel doesn't grow this way, but it grows another way. Like we've got ways to keep pushing forward no matter what. So you should still help fight these bills, of course. But yeah, I love that. I think about that a lot.
All right, here's your surprise. You gave us a URL on one of our favorite companies we cherish dearly. So we're going to give you the present of the lightning round. Now, the lightning round, you thought you were done with the interview.
This is fun.
Lightning round.
Okay. This is the lighten the mood.
No, lighten the mood. This is where the math questions come in, the coding questions come in. This is where things get real.
Let me open up Claude real quick.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
That was the warm-up interview. Now, the game goes like this. We're going to ask you a question. You have to answer the first thing that comes to mind. These are very important questions that
I get it.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I'm going to start first, and then we're just going to go. All right. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
All right.
No question. Pancakes.
What's the one tech tool that you can't live without?
USB drive. Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Favorite late night snack while reading policy memos?
God. Chips and salsa.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
Chips and salsa for sure. Yeah.
A book or movie that shaped how you think about privacy or freedom?
Gattaca? I don't know if you're familiar with Gattaca.
Yeah, good one. Wow, you pulled that one out of nowhere.
Yeah, you
like
did.
it. I didn't know that was the one I would answer until you said that. So it really is a lightning round.
We think we know the answer to this one, but if EFF had a mascot, what would it be and why?
EFF's mascot has been for a long time our executive director's giant Bernese mountain dogs. That has been sort of one of the mascots, I'll say. she just retired, and I don't know what Nicole Ozer, our new ED's pets look like. So I don't know that I can answer that. What do you think? You said you think you already know.
Privacy badger?
The privacy
badger. Damn it. Of course it's privacy badger. Jesus. Yeah, you're
Jill,
right.
Honestly,
that's a
Jill,
much better
I didn't
answer.
think of privacy badger, but it's such a duh. Of course it's privacy badger.
Yeah, it's privacy. Of course it's privacy badger.
Yeah, and I have some stickers with the privacy badger, logo.
And the honey
it.
badger don't give a crap about nothing. If you haven't seen that video, that's one of the greatest videos out there.
That is where the name privacy badger came from.
I love it. That's fantastic. By the way, I tell people this all the time, or for the new listeners out there, I want you to know that Privacy Badger is the one extension. I suggest people not install a lot of extensions in your browser because they're potential security gaps. But Privacy Badger is my favorite extension.
One of the good
it's
ones.
my first extension I install when I have a new machine on my browser. Make sure you're using Privacy Badger. It is an amazing innovation by the EFF. So definitely want to mention that. Jill, you're up.
Yeah. So what was the first computer you ever owned, Jason?
Okay. Owned. It's what was that? I'm trying to think of the slogan for the Dell computers. I can't remember the slogan. I think
It's
it was
a
a Dell. I mean, like a Pentium 3. Intel
nice.
Pentium 3,
Mhm.
something like that. That is probably not right. I mean, the first one I used was a Commodore 64.
Woohoo!
The first one I really used, right? But that was my friend's. He let me.
Was that when you did the great hack? The big great hack that they're going to write books about?
That was a Celeron for sure. That was much later.
Celeron for sure.
But I did. My friend, who I give a lot of props to this guy, had a Commodore at his house, and he learned programming when we were like 9 years old, and we were, I was busting out BASIC in the computer lab when I was 10. So
nice.
That
counts.
All right, so I think I know the answer to this one, but we'll see because
Privacy Badger.
I've seen two. I've seen two of your rooms of your home so far, so I feel like I know the answer to this. Are you a clean desk or organized chaos person when you're deep in a campaign?
It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Everything is clean with you. You have the
cleanest... it looks nice. It's organized, but I'm not going to turn the camera down because what you would see here is, I can't even, I had to move things to put the laptop here. Look. It's clean where I'm at. It's messy where
you work.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, listen, you passed the lightning round. Congratulations.
Woo! Yay!
Thank you. That was fun.
Huge win.
That was fun.
And Jason, this has been so brilliant and incredible and fantastic. Thank you for
Thank you.
walking.
Same. Very much the same. Both of you and Zeb too.
Yay! Thank you for walking us through EFF's strategy, the real harms of verification, and the exact way our listeners can help. Before we let you go, though, tell listeners where to find EFF's resources on verification, how to sign up for alerts, and the best place to donate or volunteer.
Okay. I'm going to put all this, I'm going to make sure if it's not already there, it's at EFF.org/Destination Linux.
We just want you to say it again.
Yeah. I know. If you want two more things, I'll just tell you. They're going to be linked, but I'll put two more things out there. EFF.org/AV is our age verification hub, which will also be on the Destination Linux page. And I was a guest host with our executive director for 3 seasons of EFF's podcast, How to Fix the Internet. So if you want a podcast to listen to, it's evergreen for the most part. It covers a lot of topics that you probably already know a little bit about, with experts in the field talking about sort of whether it's privacy, surveillance, free speech, fair use, open source, accessibility, AI, quantum, whatevers, it's all there. So you can go to the Destination Linux page at EFF.org, or you can go to howtofixtheinternet.org for that.
I'm going to say it 3 times. It makes me so happy. Yeah. Listen, we are so out of time. It's ridiculous.
I know.
So
that's been great, though. I'm sorry I talk too much, but you all have been fantastic.
This is exactly what I hoped for. I hoped we'd have such a long show, except our producers, I didn't hope for that, but I hoped for it. I am so thankful to have you on this show. Again, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners. Listen, it's been a dream of Jill's and I to have EFF represented on this show for a long time. 190 countries, 3 million downloads. We couldn't have done it without you and your support. So thank you for giving us the ability to have a platform that we could bring someone like Jason on, and we're going to hopefully have you back on, and many people from the EFF back on, because we love your faces and we love everything you guys do. So, and thank you to our audience for everything that you do. Thank you for supporting us. Please go out there and check out the EFF.org/Destination Linux page, which is amazing. Support them in any way you can. Get out there and do something Just like this shirt says, you got to resist. You got to resist all this ID verification, all of these laws. They want you to get distracted. They want you to forget. But thanks to people like EFF, we don't have to forget. We've got resources that are working in our corner. So, everyone, that is the show. Jill, do the sign off and we'll end it right here. 2 hours in. I love it.
Okay. Everybody, have an incredible week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination and the people you meet along the way, like Jason
Absolutely.
and EFF.
I love it. Thanks,
We're
everyone.
happy to be here.
Yeah.